Hey you, it's time for episode number 304 with my girl Jentry, the founder of Crazy Train. If you've been around the boutique game or the Western side of the boutique industry for any period of time, this is a name that's definitely going to resonate and a story that you have to hear. Let's talk about your business, strategy, and the juicy details of what actually works, from mainstream fashion to fashion on Main Street and the entire ecosystem behind it. How do we scale your company and do it with the balance and the happiness that we all seek? Let's hear from those insiders, experts, and strategists that actually make it happen. I'm your host, Ashley Alderson from the Boutique Hub, and I can't wait to chat. All right, guys, welcome back to the show this week. I'm pretty pumped about this one because our guest today, Miss Jentry, I have wanted to tell your story for such a long time. I feel like I've kind of like stalkerish watched your business grow and watched you grow and evolve and go through ups and downs and like this crazy journey that you're on, like fittingly crazy journey
Right.
for Crazy Train. So we're going to get into all the nitty gritty, but just to kind of lay the groundwork in case anyone doesn't know who you are quite yet, real quick, tell me, when did you start in business? Where is it located? Obviously, you're wholesale and not retail. And your wholesale like type, what products you particularly sell?
Right. So we got our start in 2013, fresh out of college. We were initially located in Amarillo, Texas, but it's since been moved to Stephenville, Texas. And wholesale, yes, Western niche, but definitely follow mainstream trends. So that's Crazy Train, I guess, in a really short nutshell.
How many employees today? And then where's your showrooms, or where do people typically find you when they want to shop wholesale?
I've got 12 girls that are part of my extremely valuable team. Couldn't do it without them. And showrooms, we had one in Denver, but since Wessa moved, we've since shut that one down and just focused all of our attention in Dallas. We've got one on the 14th floor, on the western floor. Specific showroom number, I'd have to look it up for you. But we're over by Gina T's and West & Co. down that back hallway.
Love it. So when I think about Crazy Train, and I just, your brand is vibrant and loud and new, and you came into, a pretty, I would say like set in their way type industry. And you came in fresh out of college, you blew some stuff up and just like made this a huge name for yourself. Take me back to what it was like to start this business and how you were called to this business and how you came and approached it so differently.
Um, Honestly, there was a huge gap in the market, and I think we saw that. I worked in a boutique in college, and I definitely enjoyed that. I got a lot out of it while I was studying interior design and some different things, obviously not clothing. The boutique world was extremely interesting to me, but like I said, there was a huge gap in the market. There was either really, really great expensive items, or there was things from overseas that were lower quality. So bridging the gap between that first was kind of why Crazy Train was born. So we needed more Western influencing teas. We needed some things that, your middle class woman was able to purchase and be able to afford. And then on top of that, I feel like when we entered the market, I do think maybe we shook the boat quite a bit. We broke open pre-packs. We set a lower minimum for owners to be able to buy our product. There's a lot of different things we played around with. While we might have made some people a little angry at us, we definitely stayed true to being, I guess, more small business geared towards that person. And so we based a lot of our decisions on that particular customer or that customer niche. And I think that's why we took off. So bridging the gap and changing some ways that things were kind of going, really just made us who we are, I guess. So while it maybe came with some backlash, it also came with, success and rock the world a little bit. So yeah.
You know what's so cool about that is change is hard, right? And great things don't happen when you're comfortable. And so I feel like there's always industry disruptors, right? But when you look back at it, you really paved the way for a lot of people to change, some terms or change their focus. And I think as a great example, just since we're speaking Western, like I think about Ariat coming out with a boutique line. Like that's something unheard of, but boutiques have become so big, small business focus has become so big. And you definitely had a hand in that. I want to break down specifically some of the terms that you attacked right out of the gate, because I think there's a lot of wholesalers that would love insight on this.
Right.
So let's talk about pre-packs,
Okay.
because that's a big boutiques need, more variety in choosing their pre-packs because boutiques are so different. Women's sizes are so different. How'd you come to land at the decision you're at, and what have the results been when you give more flexibility, and how do you deal with any inventory issues that might result from that?
So many things to cover in that one packed or several packed questions there. Yeah, it wasn't easy to blow open the pre-pack. Obviously, when you're manufacturing goods and you're pre-packing, as long as you get rid of all your pre-packs, you don't have any 3X on your shelf or smalls on your shelf, which may be, the least sought after size for particular, clients, right? So learning to manufacture the right amount of inventory when your packs are open is extremely challenging. But it's taken us, it probably took us a year, 2 years to kind of level out and see which ones sold out first. So if we're out of mediums, that means that I needed to bump those up in production, scale back on my smalls, adjust my extra larges. It's a learning curve for sure. But as you get a larger customer base, you're able to kind of scale it and make sure that it's I guess viable. But it's not impossible. So, we're able to now kind of manufacture the correct quantities in order to make sure that we sell out of everything too. But yeah, there's still some products that'll, leave us with 20 smalls, but out of, 1,500, if I run a 1,500, that's not that big of a, I guess, in my mind. So definitely hard, but it's brought a lot of opportunities as far as success goes because um, you're able to allow your customer to come back to you. So if they, sell out of the one run that they bought from you, and they learned that heck, there's 10 more people that want mediums from me, I'm gonna get 10 more mediums. So the rate at which they come back to visit you is great. Now they learn their own customers also. So, if they've got older women or, they do cater to a smaller preteen, they're not stuck with half a pack that didn't work for them. And so I think that brought a lot of people back to us in that sense also was, hey, I'm not going to waste money on inventory in a pre-pack. And I know for sure that I can make a, valuable decision based on, my own customer base. So it's almost like custom. It's like a custom pack that fits them. And I think it's really awesome. But it's something that, obviously took us time to get the learning curve figured out too. So
Yeah. Yeah. You're helping them definitely cut down on inventory waste. And like you said, you're building a strong repeat customer base. Um, part of my mind wants to just like dive in and talk right about inventory management in your systems. We'll come back to that in a minute, but I want to stay on the topic of terms because you also lowered minimums and kind of took a fresh approach to minimums. What was that strategy like for you?
right. That came with a lot of pros and cons, I think. But as we kind of, saw the sway change and saw the customers that were brought to us, obviously, we adjusted. But the low minimum was really meant to take the gamble out of the initial shock of the first purchase. So I want the customer to be able to buy my product and be able to say, hey, this is quality, this is going to fit, this is worth the wholesale price that we're paying for it. instead of saying, hey, you've got to spend, 3,000 with me. And if it doesn't work out for you, that's 3,000. Like that's a big chunk to most small businesses. And so taking the gamble out of it was important. But then again, going back to that small customer, I mean, there's people out there that got their start, I think, on Crazy Train, and we were able to make it possible for people not to, go into a extreme debt in order to start a small business. And in my opinion, the small business is the backbone of this entire country. And so encouraging people to be able to do that without really going so far into debt that they're now just swimming in inventory that maybe didn't work out. The minimum was a good thing. Now that came with cons too. So, being able to manage whether or not these people, might have had tax ID numbers, yet were they personally buying? So we set up a inside of our internal system where our website will basically flag an order if there's too many, say, mediums purchased from this one particular customer. Now, then when the system flags you, we're able to go back and re-verify, make sure that there's invoices, are you sending this to your customer, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it does come with cons, but at the same time, if you're able to combat those, then I think the low minimum still stands strong and still is able to help those small customers. So
Yeah. I'm curious, as you flag them on that, what is your inventory management system?
So we use a lot of people use like Shopify or a website host of like that. We've used 3D Cart since the beginning, and they're it's similar, I guess, because it's easy to kind of get started on it. But they're able to also program for you, so they have like, I guess, a tech team that's able to come in and say, okay, you want a specific thing done, let's just have somebody code that for you and integrate it on top of your system, which I'm sure, maybe someone like Shopify or Square has that also. But yeah, as far as inventory management goes, it's all done through that same system. So we'll put in our inventory once we receive it, and then when we're out, we're out. We do like to have a cushion, because in my mind, since the beginning, there's always room for error. Sometimes we'll have hundreds of people on the website because there was a new release. So we have what we call a cushion. My manager Shauna uh, will basically hold back some inventory for safekeeping. Once we release the product, by after we've pulled all those orders, we'll go back in and put that cushion, I guess, so to speak, back online, and a few lucky retailers will be able to snag it. But yeah, as far as inventory goes, all done by computer under our main website there. So
Gotcha. All right. One, I would say, hot topic in the industry is buy-in groups. I could say buy-in groups. I could say knockoffs. All of that.
yeah.
And I know that you've put your foot down with like MSRP and trying to manage and combat some of that. Give me your no holds bar opinion on that happening in our industry today.
Opinion. Yeah. So it's frustrating. It can be extremely frustrating. However, I do think that's, something that we just have to adapt to. Like you said, we integrated our MSRP, and that while some people might say that's crazy, how do you keep up with that? How do you police that? Our retailers police it for us, and they, have to turn people in if they see it, because in turn it's protecting them, it's protecting us, it's protecting the brand. And so yeah, it's been difficult, but I think it's been successful. And so yeah, so our MSRP, we just require that you double wholesale. We definitely encourage you to charge more. But in order to keep things a little simple, whatever you pay wholesale, we're going to require that you just double that. And and it's for 30 days. So after that, we kind of just say you're on your own, and we can't MSRP or make different rules for each product. So 30 days is kind of where we're comfortable with, and that's where our policing, I guess ends. So, anywho, yeah, I definitely think that particular buy-in group, all that, it's something that maybe as a community we can just keep continuing to adapt and come up with different ways to make sure that that doesn't hurt business, and see what else there is. But as of now, that's the only thing I can come up with. So I'm open to hearing anybody else's suggestions also, because I know it can be extremely angering. So
Yes. Well, I think that's helpful. I like that you said that your customers police it for you. Because really, I mean, we see the same thing in the hub. Everyone's trying to combat that same thing. And a lot can be done when we choose to work together to accomplish that goal.
right.
What about pre-orders? I know you had mentioned, that's just another thing that can be so touchy for wholesalers and so touchy for retailers. What's your thoughts on or retailers taking pre-orders with your product?
I don't like it. I think it's a gamble in itself. Sometimes we'll sell out of something within 2 hours. Sometimes it'll take 48 hours. Some things will, stay and take a couple of weeks. So pre-orders, while we don't say that you can't, we highly frown upon it, and that's what I've told my customers from the get-go. The minimum order is $50, and in my mind, a $50 gamble is like having a $10 lunch bill for a week, right? So if you're not able to kind of gamble and get $50 worth of product, what are you really doing, girlfriend? Because I think on the flip side, as your customer, these customers paying for their pre-order, there's pre-order nightmares that happen across the board. Sometimes product doesn't show up. Sometimes product isn't what the picture looked like. Sometimes product sells out and they're not able to get to it, and then in turn you're making yourself have a bad name. And so customer service wise, from a customer standpoint looking in, I just think it's a bad idea. I don't know that there's any benefit to it other than the risk of the money, so not having to spend the money before you know take the order, I guess. So that's really the only benefit. And so in my mind, I'm like, well, if we took that part out of it, what else, what else are you getting from a pre-order? So yeah, I could probably talk about that one for hours, but yeah, pre-orders, because that was probably a big failure of ours. Actually, we took pre-orders. We didn't take money for the pre-order. But back when we had our shoe idea, I want to say it was 14 or 15, 2015 maybe. We took pre-orders. Well, come to get our shoes and containers worth of shoes, and they got held up at customs, and we were a month, 2 months behind. Well, our customers took pre-orders and actually took money, and they were mad at us, but there was nothing we could do. And so since then, pre-orders have always had a bad taste in my mouth, and I don't prefer them, and I don't I definitely don't think it's a good idea any which way. But I guess I understand why. Maybe.
I laugh because I remember the shoe thing, and I swear I see that same situation unfold every month, in the industry. I see someone else where it's a similar situation. A vendor does a pre-order themselves. Maybe they do take money, but even if you have the money, it's still a problem if the boutique owner is then taking the pre-order, because it's just one long line of disappointment. So I totally agree with that. And I appreciate you mentioning, like, man, that was a failure. That was a lesson that we had to learn. What is something else you feel like has been a big lesson that you've had to learn, unfortunately, through the growth that you've had over the past 8 years?
Um, that was a huge one. That was when I put my foot down and said I'm never ever taking a pre-order again, unless that product is I don't know, but honestly, I've quit with pre-orders myself. So you'll get to see stuff at market from us, but you won't. We'll actually already have it in stock. You're gonna get it pretty quickly. But another failure or another lesson. Shoot, I feel like there's so many little ones every day that that you just take, and it's funny because I laugh. You know, we've been doing this for, I guess, going on 8 years now. Yeah, 8 years. And we're still learning lessons. They might be smaller than the pre order one or the headache of that. But we learn lessons every day, whether it's employees or, you know, adapting to the trends. That's probably the one that sticks out the most as you ask me that question is adapting. So not getting so stuck on maybe the serape pattern that's been selling out for you for the last couple months that you do so much serape that now you're stuck with it because they're tired of it. So adjusting and adapting to those trends and constantly learning is super important lesson that I've learned over the years. Because I've tried to take one pattern and spread it out over almost everything I had. Did it work? Ish, but I know I won't do that again. I'll manipulate patterns and create something fresh because I think you have a better chance when that happens. But adapting is a hard lesson to learn, I think sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, adapting. Tell me about, a couple of years ago, speaking of adapting, you were in a terrible, tragic accident
Mhm.
that completely changed your life and how you approached your business. Talk about adapting. I mean, after having survived that and coming back to business, what was that time in your life like?
I was a dark place. I I I hate thinking about it, but it's necessary to in order to grow, I guess, from it. Um, it was tough. I mean, my physical capabilities were taken away from me, and so and that in turn affected my mental, you know, stability. Thankfully, I still had a good team behind me that was able to keep me motivated to keep pushing. Um, and so while I might have not been the happiest or even the most confident, there was still a drive there to not fail, I guess. Because when your world comes crashing down, I think the worst thing you can do is make it worse by throwing in the towel, I guess. So at that point, while it might have been super hard, um, I had to keep going, not only because I feel like my retailers were relying on me, but my team, my girls that work for me. So, I think that's where I found my drive again and just buckled up and still made it a good year. I had to.
Yeah. During that time, how long were you out? And when you came back, I mean, I always use this analogy, and I'm going to change it now to the COVID analogy inside of retail boot camp. I used to say the bus rule, right? Like if you let's just say you're hit by a bus today, you're gone. Who runs your business? Where's everything at? Who knows what to do? And I mean, today it could be you get COVID and you're quarantined and you can't run your business. For you, you had to come back and your business had to operate without you for a period of time. Did that change how you look at systems and processes and what could be done without your hands in all of it?
I learned a lot of lessons there as far as delegating goes, and making sure, of course, it could be ran, you know, essentially without you. But I'll be the first to tell you, I was out. I was in the hospital for 9 days, and then they sent me to an in-house rehab facility for another month. So for a whole month, I wasn't allowed to leave basically a hospital type facility. Um, I was still checking emails and helping put through orders and kind of giving some commands. So in my mind, yeah, that was the point where I learned, hey, you know, at a certain point, you've got to start making sure these girls can function without you for sure. But
Mhm.
uh, yeah, so since then, I have definitely let up, or at least, you know, allowed for other people and managers, things like that to take over. But only to a
Mhm.
certain extent, because that's probably something that I go back and forth on in my mind, is if you completely 100% step out, oh, sometimes the brains behind the business suffers and might not do as well. Because in my mind, as the evolution of fashion, the trends, the everything happens, your business has to evolve too. Anywho, that's probably another avenue we could go down and talk about forever. But essentially, yes, yeah, I do think, you know, making sure things are delegated properly, etc. And that's still something I work on constantly. I mean, I I still
Mhm.
have things that I need to give up as I get closer to having the second kid. But it's a struggle. It's
Mhm.
not easy. I'm obsessed with my business, absolutely. And I think that sometimes is why we succeed in a way, but sometimes, it's a catch 22 too. So,
Yeah. Tell me more about that though. I would love to hear, what does it mean to lead your business and not just be a boss in your business? Like, are there specific systems or processes that you feel like you've implemented with your team that have really helped with that?
right. I'm a super hands-on kind of person. I've always been that way. And so in my mind, if my team hits a brick wall, I don't necessarily these days want to do it for them, but I do want to be included so that they learn and we learn together and we move forward. So that in the future, if something similar was to happen, I think that builds on the fact of, you know, giving them responsibility, but also confidence as to what would Gentry do or how would Gentry have done it, so that we're successful in the end in resolving those speed bumps, I guess. Um, yeah, I think that answers that question.
Yeah, I think that's good. What's your normal week look like?
Um, so I that's something that I've realized lately. I've put myself on a schedule, which is sometimes I don't know. Routines to me make me want to throw up. I like things that are new, fresh. I like challenges. I love the boat shaking. I guess. I feel like that's where I thrive.
Mhm.
But normally on a Monday, I'll come in to the warehouse, make sure everything's running smoothly, pick out the next day's release. Sometimes I'm ahead a few weeks, but normally my mind's changing because I learned from the week previous kind of what people were hitting on. So I'm going to pick out, the things that I think will be really hot this week or
Mhm.
fit their demands. And then Tuesday we'll do our release. We'll make sure everything goes smoothly, get with the marketing girls and make sure the emails are going out, et cetera, et cetera. Kind of overseeing. Wednesday here lately, I've taken personal days, so that's when I'll schedule my doctor's appointments or at least work from home, and do more quiet things. Thursdays and Fridays are always up in the air of what happens then. Are we working on more designs? Are we learning? Are we efficiency, making sure some of our
Mhm.
systems, our processes are working good? Are we meeting with employees? um you know Things of that nature. I really do though, like a week schedule is all over the place sometimes for me, and I thrive on that. So doing
Mhm.
something different each week is important, I think, as far as I
Yeah.
go. So
It's funny because I feel like in this industry, there's well, for boutique owners anyway, I would say there's an art side of the brain and a science side of the brain.
right.
And I think to thrive in the environment that you're in, being a creative, like I could totally see how your week has to have an element of spontaneity to it, or you would probably be bored to death with
Absolutely.
that process. I can.
Well, it is funny because I think my retailers have caught on to that. I think sometimes they're like, okay, we never know what she's gonna throw at us, or is she gonna drop, something surprise? And I think they get a kick out of that too. And so it keeps it fresh on both ends sometimes.
Yeah. Thinking about your relationship with your retailers, you're one of the first wholesalers that I remember really engaging your customers the way that you did. now we talk about this every single day, the importance of authenticity and having a personal brand and, such a, personal relationship with your customers via video. That's something I feel like you've done really well all along. How has that evolved for you, that personal relationship with your customers?
I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of come natural. I've wanted to know them, since the beginning. I've been to most every market. It's almost here recently where, I was like, okay, I've gotta, I've gotta delegate some stuff out. Markets can be, extremely exhausting, especially when you're pregnant. But so to speak, I think making sure you have relationships with your customers, whether it be retail customers or wholesale customers, is important because there is such thing as loyalty and I guess validation in the purchase. Um, so supporting small goes, I think there's a bigger picture there. I think knowing who you're buying from is something that we're hungry for. So I know sometimes I'll get caught up in it too, seeing an ad and knowing who built that company or who started it. Was it a child? Was it, a single mom? Was it a veteran, etc. I think really helps solidify your purchase. So in my mind, I think, you know, allowing myself to have those relationships. Now, some of these women I've never actually been able to meet in person. And I still feel like we're, essentially friends or at least, you know, but maybe it's because we go live. Maybe it's because they're able to see my personality outside of, a strict business like sense. So that's definitely something I think some of our social media has broken down as far as walls go, and I'm thankful for it. I think it's awesome.
Absolutely. So, two quick questions for you. As you think about all the ups and downs and lessons that you've learned, both from your own business perspective, but then also watching all of your customers and seeing them grow with you. Um, Two questions. The first is for anyone that's a wholesaler that's listening, what is the best piece of advice you could give them today on, hey, if you want to build a brand that lasts and that customers love, and that does maybe rock the boat a little bit, what would you do? What's the piece of advice you'd give them?
Oh man, just set yourself apart. Don't be afraid like you said, shake the boat. Do something different. Stretch the limits. I guess in my mind, like just don't be scared. You gotta take the risk. I guess, which I think is important.
All right, from the retailer perspective, as you've watched all these boutiques grow and flourish, what do you feel like is the one thing that the most successful boutiques you work with have in common that you would tell everyone about today?
Oh, there's like 10 that I can count on my fingers that are boss women, man. And what's funny is they all run their businesses a little different via social media. While one might heavily use Instagram and one heavily uses her Facebook group, I see another one killing it in the ads, Facebook ads program, right? Or there's another one that's doing lives. What I see though that they all have in common is they are relentless, they will not give up, and they're confident in themselves. They'll buy a lot of clothing and they'll push it. They'll hustle and they won't give up. Now, as far as their secrets go, I'm not sure what they are, but I do know the one thing they all have in common is that they're confident and they're hustlers. They're adapting to all the changes in social media and they're running with it. They're absolutely running with it.
Mhm. Perfect. Well, Gentry, I want to just give you thanks for joining me on the podcast today and for sharing some insights and your ups and downs and highs and lows and thoughts on rocking the boat in your industry. I do have one more question if you're cool with it.
Yep.
I know you're a busy boy mom, right? You've got one already, you got one on the way. And I've seen the pictures of this lake house that you have, that you
Uh-huh.
renovated.
Great.
Freaking amazing.
Thank you.
And as I think about you just like continuing to grow and mature in your business. Fast forward 30 years, you're at the lake house with your kids and now with your grandkids, and you're looking back and you're like telling them the story of Crazy Train and this crazy thing that you built and the life that you lived. What's the thing that you want them to remember most about you and everything that you built, accomplished, and who you really were?
Don't let your failures be the end of you. Adapt, overcome, and keep hustling. Because I think the people that give up are the ones that obviously aren't going to succeed. So I think just that's what I want my kids to know. Like, you literally can do anything you put your mind to, as long as you're willing to be mindful of adapting and changing the ways, breaking the norms to make it work. There's endless opportunities out there, and sometimes it just takes change to bring success.
Perfect. Well, Jentry, thanks again for coming on the show today and for all that you're doing. Best of luck with this new adventure you have in your belly. And we can't wait to hear all about it and to see what you do next.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So many of you guys have been asking questions on the daily about Instagram. And in the last couple of weeks of the podcast, we've shared Instagram tips and downloads and ideas. And this week, I'm so excited to take it one step further because it is finally time, and our Instagram Ignite Masterclass is now live for anyone who is a boutique owner, product maker, creative, wholesale brand, or someone who's just ready to grow the gram. If you have a product to sell and people who need to see it. This week in the show notes, click on the link to learn more about the Instagram Ignite Masterclass built by retailers for retailers that walks you through everything you need to know about all of the updates that have happened to the platform and how to use it, how to create and manage and batch engaging content that's actually going to drive engagement, traffic, relationships, and sales, and finally, how to grow the platform. Everything from the 5-3-1 method to the $1.80 method and what it takes to grow organically in a way your customers hang around for a long period of time, not just someone who's going to jump on with a loop giveaway and jump off tomorrow. It's so much deeper than that. Guys, if you're ready to be serious about growing your Instagram, check out this week's show notes for a link to the Instagram Ignite Masterclass.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. We hope that you loved it. Don't forget to hit subscribe and leave a rating and review down below for a chance to be one of our featured listeners each and every week. For more information on our spirit of community over competition and how to access complete show notes and bonus downloads from our guests, head on over to theboutiquehub.com and join the community. We'll see you next week.